Okay then guys, strap yourselves in. We have an exceptionally jam-packed daily market update for you guys. And if you are new around here, do consider becoming a subscriber because we drop an update just like this one around 1 p.m. UK time to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the markets. Certainly specifically the markets that we specialize in, which is the cryptocurrency space. So we've got a lot to cover. A lot has taken place over the past 24 hours. Yesterday, Senator Lummis teased us with a big announcement coming at 10 a.m. Wyoming time. We got that announcement. That is that she has been named chief of the Senate Banking Subcommittee on Digital Assets. Big ramifications for this with the likes of a Bitcoin strategic reserve. That's looking a lot more likely. We also have news that the SEC has just reversed SARB 121. And this is going to allow for banks to actually start to custody crypto, which was legislation that was put in previously by the SEC. Since then, we've had comments from, of course, David Sachs. We'll look at a clip from David Sachs a little bit later on, and Trump. And ultimately, you know, the likes of JP Morgan Chase on the back end of this, within a few minutes, actually announced on their website, commit to safe custody of your Bitcoin BTC backed lines of credit and growth. So now it's looking like not only are banks going to be able to correctly account for Bitcoin and take part in that game, and more broadly in the future crypto assets, you're actually going to be able to issue lines of credit and essentially you'll be able to kind of CeFi, not DeFi because it's central banking assets. You know, you'll be able to take loans and things from your Bitcoin. Then we had news, Trump was signing executive orders. One of those is Trump's US crypto digital assets stockpile, creation and maintenance of a national digital asset stockpile, and proposed criteria for establishing such a stockpile, potentially derived from cryptocurrencies lawfully seized by the federal government. So this is obviously referring to Bitcoin. There was news on that in regards to seized funds from Silk Road and the clearance to sell that. I don't think they're going to do that now. But this is huge because this is a digital asset, not specifically Bitcoin stockpile. We'll listen to what David Sachs has to say on all of this. Then we'll look at what Trump said yesterday at the World Economic Forum, and then we'll finish things off with a bit of price action. So I did say this was going to be a jam-packed one, and it is indeed going to be that. Let's kick things off with a bit of a storyline, a bit of a timeline. Yesterday, Cynthia Lummis, who's been very pro-Bitcoin, she's one of the few people years ago that said, thank God for Bitcoin, back in one of the committees a few years ago. So she's been very pro-crypto. She said this: big things are coming. Stay tuned for 10 a.m. And that was Wyoming time. Since then, we had news that Senator Cynthia Lummis has been named chief of Senate Banking Subcommittee on Digital Assets. She's making waves, pushing to pass urgently groundbreaking legislation for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Get ready, big changes coming. This is the official announcement. Digital assets are the future, and if the United States wants to remain global leader in financial innovation, Congress needs to urgently pass bipartisan legislation establishing a comprehensive legal framework for digital assets, and that strengthens the US dollar with strategic Bitcoin reserves. I am humbled. My colleagues have placed their trust in me to chair this historic subcommittee, and I look forward to shepherding bipartisan legislation to President Trump's desk this year that secures our financial future. Now, she said, I told you this was the year for Bitcoin and digital assets. Bitcoin maxis are kind of like, I'm melting right now because certainly on the news of the digital asset stockpile, they're very frustrated that it's not their beloved Bitcoin. And actually, Bitcoin, we've always clowned Bitcoin maxis for being so close-minded. Ignorance is bliss. And they obviously, due to obviously having a bias and being invested in Bitcoin more than anything, because the Satoshi's vision is no longer a thing, in my opinion, just ignore the kind of innovation that's going on here more broadly. And it's very ironic. And one thing they've refused to realize is actually that this technology that was created and given to us to combat the traditional financial system is actually doing the exact opposite. It's enhancing it, and it's bringing all these kind of George Orwellian properties to it. Then we had new Staff Bulletin 122. The summary is this Staff Bulletin SARB rescinds the interpretive guidance, including in section FF of topic 5 in the Staff Accounting Bulletin entitled accounts of obligation of safeguarding crypto assets an entity holds for its platform users. Now, this is a big deal because this has everything to do with banking and how they hold it. David Sachs is agreeing with what Cynthia Lummis has to say here. Sub 121 was a disaster for the banking industry. The only stunt American innovation, and it only stunted American innovation and advancements of digital assets. I am thrilled to see it repealed and get the SEC back on track for fulfilling its intended mission. It's very interesting. Hester Pierce here saying buy Sub 121. It's very interesting, isn't it, that you had an SEC that was essentially saying we want to protect consumers, yet what they trust, which is banks, weren't actually allowed to hold it, and it went against them. And since that, literally hours after that, you had JP Morgan Chase on their website. Remember, JP Morgan Chase CEO is Jamie Dimon, saying committed to safe custody of your Bitcoin BTC backlines of credit and growth. Now, this is interesting because of how zealously Jamie Dimon has been against Bitcoin. Remember, he's all for digital assets, not Bitcoin specifically. He compared it to smoking and said, I don't think you should smoke, but it's your choice. You know, these guys would have been working on this for a long time. All of them will be, and we're about to see banks enter and unlocking trillions of dollars, the crypto space broadly. This is all broke over the past 24 hours. What I also want to do now, guys, is actually dive over to, or before we do that, let's just break this. Just in update on Trump's US crypto digital asset stockpile, creation and maintenance of national asset stockpile and proposed criteria for establishing such a stockpile, potentially derived from cryptocurrencies lawfully seized by the Federal Reserve. The working group shall propose a federal regulatory framework governing the issuance and operation of digital assets, including stablecoins in the United States. The working group report shall consider provisions for market structure oversight, consumer protection, and risk management. The working group shall evaluate the potential creation and maintenance of a national digital asset stockpile, so not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin maxis, it's like that I'm melting kind of witch thing going on. And proposed criteria for establishing such a stockpile, potentially derived from lawfully seized government through its law enforcement agency. So we know the Bitcoin, or we know the government the US government's one of the largest holders of Bitcoin. A lot of that seized from Silk Road and a number of other catastrophes that plagued this industry. Ross is now free, over the moon to see that. My introduction into crypto was in the days of Silk Road back in, I think, 2013 or something like that. Got some great, hilarious stories. You know, I was still a kid, but I remember hearing stories about like people's parents because they thought, who's sending my kid, you know, letters entitled to them? You know, this is unusual, and they'd open them and they'd obviously get an interesting surprise, but that is for an entirely different video. It's very interesting, everything that's going on. This is all huge. The price is kind of a little bit stagnant on the back end of this. It will come, guys. Be patient. Don't get suckered in to short-term price action and news. Focus on the bigger trajectory. And when we look technically, which is how we derive our bigger trajectory for the crypto space, it looks amazing, guys. It truly does. This year is going to change lives. I honestly believe that. And that's why we're here. And we're here for you guys to help you through that. So very interesting things going on. What I want to do now is dive over to CNBC, or was it Fox? Yeah, it was Fox. They had David Sachs on. I want to hear what he has to say. I also want to hear what Trump had to say at the World Economic Forum. And then we're going to finish things off with a little bit of Bitcoin and crypto price action.
For the last 4 years, the Biden administration has basically prosecuted and persecuted crypto companies, really driving them offshore. I've heard so many outrageous stories by founders, by entrepreneurs. The Biden administration would not tell them what the rules of the road were, and they would then get prosecuted. And what the industry wants more than anything else is regulatory clarity. They're saying, just tell us what the rules are, we will abide by them. And the Biden administration would never do that. And because of that, all the innovation was basically moving offshore, and America was about to lose this technology of the future. And we want that innovation happening here in the United States, and I think it now will happen in the United States because President Trump has declared that the U.S. must be the crypto capital of the world.
So it creates this working group that you will chair. What will you be looking for, and what type of guidelines are you looking to put out?
Yeah, so a few areas. So number one, market structure. We need to define what is a security, what's a commodity, what's a digital asset or collectible. You know, so there's a few different categories here. So defining the market structure is important. Second area is stable coins. I think stable coins are a really interesting area. It gives us the opportunity to extend the dollar's dominance internationally. We can basically create a digital dollar that people all over the world will use. And then the third area that we're going to look at is we're evaluating this national stockpile for digital assets. We haven't created it yet, but we're going to study that issue.
I mean, this is all just so huge. Obviously, we've spoken about stablecoins. We spoke about Ripple as a company's role there. It's interesting. A lot of the largest tech companies in the world were essentially invested in by Peter Thiel. And actually, Ripple is no different because Ripple started its life out as OpenCoin. And Peter Thiel's Founders Fund was a big investor in that. And Peter Thiel's such a big guy when it comes to technology, certainly US technology companies, often surveillance companies, which is what Palantir is. And that's a very interesting connection and link there. Certainly you can drive how influential Peter Thiel is and how successful he's been as a tech investor. And the fact that he's backing these cryptos is a big deal. Trump also spoke at the World Economic Forum, very much reiterating what David Sachs has to say. Also, the interesting thing is they're talking about kind of altcoin or more digital asset strategic reserves, not just Bitcoin. David Sachs iterates that also. They've just announced a $500 billion investment into AI. Crypto and AIs are. We're likely going to see something coming for crypto soon. And fundamentally, there's going to be catalysts that move the price. There's a lot that's gone on, but it's being digested, being worked through. Don't expect things to move instantly, guys. That's how you'll get wrecked and frustrated. Focus on that bigger picture that we try and reiterate. Let's dive into what Trump had to say, and then we're going to finish things off with a little bit of price action.
The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. My administration has also begun the largest deregulation campaign in history.
This is huge. And how do they plan on doing that? Well, if energy, which is used to mine Bitcoin, is cheap, you know, we've got some great miners in the Patreon that are still bargain basement price. I think to our initial target for one, my biggest sort of stock holding, do become a Patreon and find that. It's something like a 20 plus, you know, nearly 30x from where it currently is now. For a stock, that's insane. Let's finish things off with a little bit of price action. So you guys all know the drill, and this is what I mean by focus on the bigger picture. We've got a number of technical reasons, 5 thus far, why Bitcoin is actually going to go higher. And actually in the short term, you know, really it's just kind of range bound at the moment, but we do think it pushes above and beyond this. When you look at the totals, I'm seeing some pretty positive things here. I did look at this falling wedge with my Patreons. I think we also mentioned it on YouTube. This is now broken out and that target's been met for total 2, total 3, and others is just very much coiling up. But we're going to get a run out of these. And when you look at the big picture of certainly total 2, which represents the altcoin market, I love charts like this that are about to break to new all-time highs and just coiling up just below them after having rammed them. You're going to get a mammoth move out of this. And if you're in the right altcoins, and I believe I am, and I believe we talk about them regularly on this channel because we've seen the kind of proof in the pudding, we're hundreds of % up on 70% of my portfolio. The worst performing one out of 70% of my portfolio, I think, is about 300% up. We want you guys on that journey with us. Do check out the Patreon. And we're also developing our own platform. We're trialing that out already. Guys, on that note, I am going to love and leave each and every one of you. It's always an absolute pleasure. This was a jam-packed one. I want to know your thoughts on everything that we've covered. And I'll see you all in the next one, hopefully. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon.